we discussed about economics and its different scopes and the types of economics, and we understood that economics is something which studies about the scarcity. We have the available resources which are very scarce, and economics will give you a perfect plan and a strategy to how make utilize of these least available or lesser available resources to achieve the maximum out of it. So we have some basic assumptions of economics. So these are the basic assumptions. It starts with changing taste and preference of the customers, of the consumers. That's the first assumption. That means we, the consumers, will have different taste and preferences, and it will not remain the same. It changes. Maybe when I'm 10 years old, my taste and preference is different, and 10 years down the line, when I'm in 20s, the taste and preference will be entirely opposite to the 10-year-old age boy. So just like this, the taste and preference of consumers will never remains constant. It will keep on changing. So that's the first assumption of economics. The second assumption is limited resources. So we don't have unlimited resources always. We have only limited resources. The resources may increase. When you have more and more resources, the production will increase, and it leads to limited resources again and again. So always economics assumes that the resources are limited. Then third is the equilibrium level. Your business may go to an high growth or may fall to an deep end. So these ups and downs is not constant for a long term. It only for a short term it will go up or it will go down. So after the short term, it will come back to a level which is an equilibrium level. So economics says that always your business have an equilibrium level. Then the next is psychological and behavioral assumptions. So here we assume the behavior and the psychology of the consumers and the business, the producers, in short. The consumers and producers will have entirely different psychology and different behavior. Consumers always plan to buy things which give him the maximum utility. I spent 10 rupees and I try to buy a product which gives me an utility not less than 10 rupees. So my behavior and my pattern the consumer's behavior and pattern will be into an utility, what he is getting out of a product. But in the case of a producer, his assumptions or his behavior will be pointing out into the business profit. How can I make more profit by using less resources or using less investment? So that's what the psychology and behavioral assumptions. Then you have the institution assumption, that is how you will have your company profitable, or how you will form your companies. In such things will come under institution assumption. Then structural assumption, that is the structure of your business, whether it is static or it is dynamic. So based on that, we assume that economics assume that no company will be static for long. If it is being static for long, it will not survive. So those assumptions comes into structural. Then ceteris paribus assumption. This is an assumption which is a very important assumption in economics. In economics, what we do, we take something. For example, we take A. A will be influenced by B, C and D. When we are analyzing A, we assume that B, C and D are constant. It will never change. So that assumption is ceteris paribus assumption. Other things remains constant always in that. Then substitute for all. Economics assume that there is a substitute for each and every products and services. For example, for tea, the substitute is coffee. So that's it. So these are the basic assumptions. Now we will discuss each assumptions one by one. So changing taste and preference of the consumers is the first assumption. So how it is assumed? What are the logic behind assuming they have this assumption? Changes in income will bring changes in taste and preference of the consumers. So first thing, income of the consumers. My income is 10,000 rupees per month. So I will look into a product which fits into my 10,000 rupees salary. If I go to a movie, I prefer to sit in a category which is 100 rupees per seat. I will never look into a categories of 250 or 350. I choose 100 rupees category to sit and watch the movie. Now my income has increased from 10,000 to 30,000. My last month my salary is 10,000. This month my salary is 30,000. So my preference will change. I will opt more affordable, more costly things. So now instead of going to a 100 rupees category, I will select 350 rupees category. So the preference will change and the taste will change. So when income changes, this change. Now a different point of view. For example, my salary has decreased from 10,000 to 5,000. I will stop watching movies because I am not affordable to watch a movie by paying 100 rupees or 50 rupees. So these are so income is a factor which affects the taste and preference of the consumers. Second factor is availability of alternatives, the choices you have. For example, I am going to an restaurant and I'm having lunch from their restaurant. Since in that locality there is no other restaurants, only one restaurant is there, I am having my lunch from there. Now on fine day, I could see a new restaurant is opened nearby that restaurant, and now I can try out there. My preference is changing from the old restaurant to the new one. If the food served there is better than the previous one, means I will start continuing my food from the new restaurant. So the available alternative has changed my preference and changed my taste. So that's what availability of, when you have multiple choice in front of you for a particular product, your preference will change. You will never adjust with the particular product. For example, in that example, if the new restaurant is not coming up, the old remains. What he is serving, what may be the price, I don't have an option. My preference and taste will be adjusted with the available single restaurant. Now, because of the arrival of new restaurant, I don't want to adjust with the old one. I can change my taste and preference regarding to that. Third, increase in competition. So this is a factor which influences your taste rather than the preference. That is, when when there are many sellers, when you have a number of sellers, new sellers will create new demands in you. For example, I'm a person who take only rice as lunch. Now I have a restaurant which serves South Indian food, a restaurant which serves North Indian food, a restaurant which serve American foods and continental food, many alternatives. So what happened, this competition, these sellers will have enough competition. So they provide more quality food stuff with reasonable prices. When this happened, what happened? Well, my preference and my taste of having South Indian food will change to American and European style of food. So increase in competition always increase the quality of the product and reasonable decrease the price. So that is one reason which changes the taste and preference of the consumers. The last factor which influences the taste and preference of the customers is the price changes. So when the price comes down, we prefer new products, or we prefer something which we have never tasted or were never utilized. If the price goes up, we give up some of the products which we are utilizing or which we are consuming. So price changes is also a factor which affects the taste and preference of the customers. So let us discuss. I repeat once again the factors. So the taste and preference of the customers is affected by change in income, availability of alternatives, increase in competition, and price changes. So when income of people increases, their taste and preference changes, positively changes. If income comes down, negative changes. They will stop or they will reduce their taste and preferences in buying things. And availability of alternative means the choices in front of a consumer. When you have multiple choice, the preference will and the taste and preference will change. If you have less choice, it will not. Increase in competition. When there are large number of sellers and large number of producers, they will give more offers, they will give quality products at a reasonable price. That will increase, that will changes the taste and preference of the consumers, and the vice versa. The price changes. When the price of things goes high, the preference comes down. When the price of things comes down, the preference and taste goes up. So that's what the changing taste and preference of the consumers, the first assumption of the economics. The second is limited resources. The first point is the resources available to satisfy the demand will be always limited. We have unlimited needs and wants, but always limited resources to satisfy those unlimited needs and wants. So the resources available to satisfy the demand will be always limited. That's an assumption of economics. So we don't have more resources to satisfy the demand which prevails. The resources will be always limited. So how the limited resources utilize effectively to satisfy the unlimited needs and wants? So here the assumption says that these limited resources should be utilized in such a way to satisfy the unlimited needs and wants. So that's what the second assumption of economics, that's the limited resources. That means economics assume that always the resources which satisfy the needs and wants of consumers will be always limited, and the producers will use these limited resources to satisfy the unlimited needs and wants in a very effective way. So that's what the second assumption. Third assumption is equilibrium level. The increase and decrease of price, demand, supply will happen only in short term. So your business is going in a way. The price, when you change the price, when the demand goes up, you will increase the price. When the supply goes down, you will increase the price. When the demand comes down, you decrease the price. When supply goes up, also you decrease the price. So many problems, many dynamic situation happens in a business. But whatever happens, that is only for a short term. Every business has an equilibrium level. That level remains for long term. Maybe during the time of Christmas, the demand for cakes goes up, the supply of cake goes up, the price may also goes up, right? Because it's seasonal advantage is there. But after Christmas, maybe in the month of January, February, the demand, supply, price of cakes come back to an equilibrium level which prevails in November and October. That's it. So October, November will have an equilibrium level of cakes, but in December, the level goes up, the price goes up, the demand goes up, the supply goes up. But in January, February, again it comes back to the normal equilibrium level which happened in October and November. That's it. So equilibrium level is what for a long term. In long term, the ups and downs will come back to the equilibrium levels. That's the second point. So equilibrium level is the correct level of your business in a long term. In between, so many ups and downs will come. But those ups and downs is only for a short term. That is seasonal. Then again back to the equilibrium level. So that is one of the assumptions of economics. Psychological and behavioral assumption. Very important because it deals with the psychology and behavior of your customer and the producer. The rational behavior of individual as customer and producer. It is rational. The best out of the time. So the assumption deals with the rational behavior of the customers and the producer. Customers are individuals and households. Customers are individuals and households. Customer aim to satisfy his needs and wants with his income. So here the customers are the people who are the individuals, the household, or people who buy for their needs, and they aim to satisfy their needs with their income. So there the behavior is economy price. The behavior and psychology of customers will be, I have an income, I want to buy something which satisfy me which the price or the value should be fitted into my income levels. So that is what the psychology and behavior of the customers. Producers are different. Producers are the businessmen, entrepreneur, and the firms. They aim to maximize the profit. Their economy, their economy level is something they have to increase the profit, not like the consumers. So these are the two different level of behavior and psychology which is assumed by economics. So I repeat once again, the behavioral and psychological assumption of economics is, economics assume that the behavior of consumers and producers, or the customers and the producers, will be always rational. Consumer will always try to satisfy the purchase or the satisfy by buying a product which fits into his income levels. So the money which he spends, he have to get the maximum utility out of it. So that's what the psychology and the behavior of consumers. In the case of producers, they are businessmen and they are companies. They always think about profit maximization. Their business, their psychology always, behavior always think about how they can maximize their business profit. Then institutional assumption. Institutional assumption is related to social, economic and political institutions. It assumes that the economy is a capital economy in which production and distribution is privately owned and for personal gain, and it's a laissez-faire policy. So very simple, that is, economics is ignoring the interventions of government into the business. Economics is ignoring the sentiments and the human values to some extent. Economics says that it related to business, social, economical and political institution, that is, the social factor is not much here. It says that a company do a business and it is for privately owned and for personal gain, not social owned or social gain, or society is ignored. The company will produce and sell the products for their personal gain. So that's what the institutional assumption. Every institution will think of making profit and personal gain. Laissez-faire policy means no intervention of government. Laissez-faire, government will never interfere much or never interfere at all. So that's an assumption. So here, in short, this assumption can be explained like, it is an assumption of economics that all the companies do business for their personal gain and personal growth, and everything is controlled by private, not by the government. The government has no much intervention, no much regulations into the business. So that's what the assumption of economics, which is not applicable in all the business. Then structural assumption, how the business structure will be. The assumption related to the nature and physical structure of the business, of the economy, not the business. The nature and physical structure of the economy. The structure can be static economy and dynamic economy. Some economy which has frequent changes, that's a static economy. That's the dynamic economy. Static economy, the economy doesn't have much changes, it remains constant. But says static in short run with only movements, not changes. That an economy can be static, not for a long term, only for a short term. But we'll have some movements, we'll have some vibrations, or we cannot may call it as changes. Some position changes, that's it. But no changes at all. There is no remarkable economic changes happened. Dynamic is for a long term, and it is very dynamic. It will have many changes which goes along with the growth. So these are the structural assumptions. So we have two types of economy structures, the static economy and the dynamic economy. Static economy will have changes, will not have changes for long run. It has some movements only. But in the case of dynamic, it will have some changes in the long and the short, whatever it may be. Then Sedrey's Fairbairn's assumption. These assumption can be explained in a small sentence that other things remains constant. In economics, at a time, you will analyze one area. When you're analyzing an area, you will assume that other areas are constant. For example, the law of demand. What's the law of demand? When other things remains constant, demand increases with fall in price and vice versa. That means the demand will always goes up when the price comes down, and demand will come down when price goes up. So this will happen only when supply is constant, when preference and taste of consumers is constant, when the political situation is constant, society is constant, all other things are constant. Only in that assumption, these things will change. So that is called as ceteris paribus assumption. That is, for example, you are analyzing the 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and organization, or entrepreneurship. In this, you are looking into you are analyzing the labor factor. When you analyze the labor factor, you assume that other 3, the land, capital, and entrepreneurship remains constant. So such assumption is called as ceteris paribus assumption. So in order to consider one factor at a time, the other factors are assumed to be constant. That's a brief summary of what is this assumption is all about. Then substitute for all. Economic assumes for each and every products or each and every factors will have assumptions. Substitutions. For tea, it's coffee, right? For labor, to some extent, machines. Many things are there. So these are the basic assumptions. Once again, let us summarize it. Changing taste and preference of the consumers. Economics always assume that the taste and preference of consumers will never be constant. It will be changing based on different factors. Then limited resource. Always the resource which satisfy the needs and wants of consumers will be limited, but the needs and wants will be unlimited. Equilibrium level. You may have ups and downs in a business. Your business may go up or come down in a short run, but it will come back to a level which is called as an equilibrium level in long run. Psychological and behavioral assumption. It is based on the assumption of the psychology and behavior of consumers and producers. Consumer psychology and behavior always will try to buy something which fit into their income level, but in the case of producer, his psychology and behavior will be always looking for maximizing his profit. Institutional assumption. Institutional assumption is again it assumes that the government will not interfere much into the business, and the business is done not to satisfy the customer. It is done for personal gain and personal growth. Structural assumption, that is the structure of the economy, static or dynamic. The economy may be static if no change happen for short, and dynamic means changes periodically. Then the ceteris paribus assumption, that is when a particular area is being analyzed in economics, the other areas are assumed to be constant. Then the substitute for all. For each and everything, there are substitutes. Next is uses and application of economics. What are the uses? We have n number of uses, and all these uses can be fit into any of these areas to some extent. So that is the uses and application of economics. The first is to plan the factors of production effectively. That is, you have 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. If one factor is missing, you can't do a business. You take example of any business. For example, you plan to start a restaurant. First is land. You need a place to construct your restaurant. That's a land. The labor, you need people to make food, you need people to serve food, you need people to do all the things, operations in the restaurant. So that's a labor. Then capital, you need money to start. You need money to invest to start this restaurant. You need money to run this restaurant every day. So that's a capital. Entrepreneurship, your restaurant has to be managed perfectly. So that is the entrepreneurship or the management or organization, whatever it may be. So these factors of production can be planned well by applying the economic concepts into it. Second is for buying goods which gives maximum satisfaction for the price paid. That is, which gives you the maximum satisfaction for the price paid. That is, you may have different goods in front of you, but your income levels may be different. You cannot. There are some goods which is not affordable to you. So you have, for buying goods, you have to buy a good or buy a product which gives you the maximum satisfaction. If it is not giving, no use of spending that money in buying that good. So economics will help you in make buying decision. It helps you in decide a good which gives you the maximum satisfaction for the money which you have paid or the money which you have sacrificed. The next is for budget constraints. While forming budget, you may have different constraints, like something will be not affordable to your budget, something will not be available, or many constraints may happen. So economics will help you in fixing up those constraints and making those constraints into a best possible way. Then life cycle hypothesis. That means the preference, for example, there is a student who is 20 years old or 18 or 15 years old. There is an old man who is 90 years old. This 15-year-old student will have a lot of demands, but less money. He's not having enough money. But you have an old man who is having good money with him, but his demand will be less. So that hypothesis, you can plan this hypothesis better by applying the economics concepts. That is how you can explore the maximum demand person who is in the early age, and those things can be managed by life cycle hypothesis. Then managing diminishing returns. That is, when you start consuming a product again and again which has no changes, the returns, your preference will come down, and the returns will come down in company's point of view. That has to be managed. Then to identify the opportunity cost, how the alternative cost can be reduced, is planned here. So to plan the factors of production effectively, how you can plan? Now we are discussing these uses and applications one by one elaborately. First is to plan the factors of production effectively. So how you can plan your factors of production by using the economic theories? Source the land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship economically. You have to source the land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship, the four factors of production, economically from the cheapest source but usable source. For example, the lands in countryside will be very cheaper, so don't go and buy a land in a countryside where there is no infrastructure. So you have to plan it well. Second, maximum utilization of resources. So factors of production are the resources which you have to run your business, and you have to maximum utilize it. How much utility you can gain out of these resources without cutting down their utility, without cutting down their productivity. How much utilization you can make out of it, that has to be utilized well. Then manage productivity and full employment of resources. That is, this maximum utilization or planning for maximum utilization should not disturb the productivity of the resources. The resources should give you the maximum productivity, and all the resources should be utilized. No resources should be left unemployed. It should be utilized well. If it is land, utilize the land available with you at the maximum. Labor, utilize at the maximum. And money, utilize it, and the management, utilize it. So these are how the factors of production can be made effectively. These are the 4 points which helps you in making it effectively. Next, for buying goods which gives you maximum satisfaction for the price paid. How it is into identifying effective price for buying. Effective price will be changing here and there based on the money which you have with you. So how I can make a effective buying by using economic analysis. You can decide it. Extract the maximum satisfaction from the products which you bought. You bought a product. How can you extract the maximum satisfaction and the maximum utilization from it? You can plan by using the economic theories. Then check the marginal utility of the products at the price paid to that. What is the additional utility I can gain out of a product? That is called as marginal utility. For example, you have 10 utilities, and if you are able to get one more, that is 11th utility out of your managing or out of your economical approach, that's the marginal utility. Then compare the satisfaction and the price. Compare the satisfaction and the price paid. You pay 1,000 rupees for a product, and are you getting 1,000 or more than 1,000 of satisfaction? Then it is okay. If not, you are underutilized. So these are the points that is coming under maximum satisfaction for the price you paid. Then for budget constraints, how the budget's constraint can be managed effectively by using economics. How unlimited desires can be satisfied with limited resources. So the desires, the needs and wants will be unlimited. How you are satisfying the unlimited needs and wants with the limited resource you have. That's the first point in budget constraints. Then careful utilization of resources and budget to achieve the maximum satisfaction with the limited resources. So yes, you can achieve the maximum satisfaction, but you have to utilize the resources very carefully. Only then you can achieve that maximum utilization level. So that are the 2 points which makes you budget constraints to come down. The life cycle hypothesis. In the life cycle hypothesis, maximum lifetime utility, as I told, that is the preference and the utility will change as per the different levels of the life cycle. So maximum lifetime utility. So you have to increase the lifetime of the product or the utility which you are getting out of a product. So again, smooth our competition patterns over the course of lifetime. The competition patterns will be different. As I told, the competition at the early ages of your lifetime will be much when compared to the late years of your life. So spending some money in your early years will give greater overall utility. That's the point. That is, you have to buy when you are in need of it. So in simple words, life cycle hypothesis says that correct time, purchase. You purchase at the exact time, or you utilize at the exact time, you invest at the exact time. So that's what all about the life cycle hypothesis. The next is managing diminishing returns. Too much consumption of same product will decrease the utility. The law of diminishing returns. For example, I am giving you are very hungry, I give you one apple, and your satisfaction from that apple will be very high. I give you one more without a gap. One more apple of the same taste and same quantity, quality, everything as same as the previous one. Now you have it. You will have some satisfaction, but not the equal satisfaction or the same satisfaction you gain out of the first apple. Now the third time I'm giving you the third one without any gap, the same type of an apple, the preference, the utility comes down. So when you consume a same product again and again, it will decrease the utility, and it's a law of diminishing returns. And you can manage this diminishing returns or diminishing utility with the help of economics. And the last point, you have one more point, that is to identify the opportunity cost. Always you have an opportunity cost for all the purchase you make, for all the investment you do. and those opportunity cost, the similar cost, the simultaneous cost will be always lesser, and economics help you to achieve that least opportunity cost. So these are the uses and applications of economics. So I am listing it once again. To plan the factors of production effectively, economics will help you to plan the land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship for a business effectively. For buying goods which gives you maximum satisfaction for the price paid, you buy a product which gives you the maximum satisfaction for the sacrifice for the money you sacrificed, money you paid, and for that you can make use of economics. Then for budgeted constraints, you have some constraints in your budget and that could be managed perfectly by using economics. Then life cycle hypothesis, at what time, which product, to whom it has to be sold. So that decision can be taken by using life cycle hypothesis, and that can be done by using economics. Then managing the diminishing returns, the falling returns, how it could be managed, what could be done to increase it. By using economics you can apply. To identify the opportunity cost, the very important point, the money or the alternative investment which you have ignored, and that cost should be less always, and that could be achieved by using the economics applications. Fabian?